Hello and welcome to Logan Rando Aquascaping. My name is Logan and today I've got a really big update for you guys on my UNS 60U back there. I set this tank up way back in September of 2021 and it's gone through a lot of changes, and I think I finally have it looking really nice and super natural, and everything's looking really healthy. So I just want to take you guys on a little bit of a tour today, walk you through what I've done to keep it successful, tell you all about my battle with BBA and how I came out on top, and just give you an overall update. So let's dive in. Okay, so first up, I want to talk about the recent changes I've made to the Hardscape. So when I first set up this tank, I have to admit it was looking a little bit amateur. And by amateur, I'm not taking a shot at anybody who doesn't go all in on this hobby. For me, I like to treat every single build in Aquascape as an art, and I think what I set up in the way beginning just didn't feel super artistic. So over the months since September of 21, I've really just been adding things to it, be it plants or pieces of hardscape. And most recently, I added a bunch of Pacific wood to sort of fill in gaps. About a month and a half ago, Boost Plant sent some of it over to me, and I'm really grateful because I think it enhanced this layout so much. The original piece of wood I have in here that's sticking out of the tank is Pacific wood, so I thought it would be cool to sort of fill in gaps and add different branches, and it almost looks like a big kraken kind of spreading out its tentacles throughout the tank. And I have to say, all the livestock really love interacting with it. Now let's talk about how the plants are doing. So my Hylanthemum tenellum green carpet is absolutely thriving. I trim it fairly regularly, I'd say about every 6 weeks or so, and that just keeps it so compact, bushy, and dense. Like any carpeting plant, you can completely hack it down to nothing. Hylanthemum tenellum green is a rosette plant, so you just take the blades down as low as you have to, and even if you cut a blade in half, the remaining part will sort of decay off and you'll get new healthy growth. So you can really trim it down indiscriminately and you'll get great results. And like I always say, the more you do this, the more beautiful, fresh, and healthy your carpet growth will be. Moving on to the Midground, my Alternanthera rhynickii mini has really been taking off lately, and most of the growth is pretty healthy. Of course, with this plant being a fairly slow grower, it is a little bit more prone to getting algae and BBA on the leaves, but I haven't seen a ton of that, and I just spot removed the most infested leaves that do appear. But I've been sort of spreading it out in the tank in little key highlight spots, and I think it does a lot to sort of bring harmony and balance to the tank, so super happy with that plant. Speaking of other midground plants, I've also been spreading out the Cryptocoryne Wenditii green gecko, which is such a beautiful plant. Just like my Hylanthemum tenellum, I've sort of brutally taken it down a few times because crypts can get pretty big if you leave them unchecked, but I've taken off the biggest leaves, and I like to do this because it keeps it nice and compact and it keeps the leaves you do see fairly small. So I'm definitely due for another big trimming of this, but I just love the color. It's a really bright, almost kind of neon green, and it really pops out from the other plants, especially the midground plant of the Anubias and the Bucephalangea, which are slightly darker tones. And the Anubias and the Bus is just absolutely killing it. I'm so happy to see this plant spreading out because this collection of Anubias and Bus comes all the way from upstate New York. I've been building it up for about 3 years, and I transported it across the country, and I'm happy to say it's really thriving here. Towards the beginning of this tank, it had a little bit of BBA, but I just spot dose it fairly regularly with H2O2, also known as hydrogen peroxide, and I'm happy to say that Anubias and Bus can take spot dosing with pretty much no problems. You might get a little bit of burning on the leaves, but I haven't really experienced much of that at all. And if you have any leaves that are infested with algae, just trim them right off. Moving on to the background, I have the Juncus repens, which was originally a bunch of microsorums, and I'm really happy that I replaced it with the Juncus repens because I think it just looks killer in this tank. If I had to critique one thing, I do wish it was a different tone of green from the foreground. I think it kind of blends a little bit too much color-wise with the foreground, but I love the texture of it. I love the rate of growth. Stem plants can be so high maintenance in the background, but the Juncus repens I would kind of classify as a slow to medium grower, so it's not like you have to take it all down every 6 weeks. It grows fairly moderately, so I've only trimmed it down once, and it grows really interesting. You sort of get these chains and runners that kind of spread out, and I just think it's really beautiful, and the guppies love it. They love going back there to do what guppies do. And yeah, it's been a really cool plant. So I think probably in a month and a half, I might trim it a little bit more, but I'm happy to say it's coming in really healthy and it provides really nice coverage for the livestock. And then we've got the Phoenix moss, which is looking quite beautiful as well. Now I've got to warn you, moss is really high maintenance. So to be honest, I don't think I'll be doing moss again anytime soon, unless it's for like an IAPLC tank or a competition tank. To really keep it nice, you just have to get in there every couple weeks or so and give it a little bit of a trim. And because the moss sinks, you know, it's super high maintenance. So you either have to set up a rig that sucks it out or just be really proactive with netting it out. So not my favorite plant to maintain, but I'm really happy to say it's doing quite well, and with regular trimmings, it stays pretty tight and compact and really healthy, and the livestock, of course, love it. The shrimp love getting on there. The little guppies are constantly nibbling on it, so I'm happy to say that it's a really healthy part of this ecosystem. And then the last plant we have to talk about is the Phyllanthus fluitans, aka the red root floater, looking rather green in this tank, and that's because I do dose nitrates in this tank. So between all my tanks, I keep Phyllanthus fluitans in all of them, and I've realized probably the biggest factor in bringing out that true red color is nitrate limitation. So in this tank, I use APT Complete, which is just the full range of NPK as well as micronutrients. So the Phyllanthus fluitans has turned green. I have no problem with that. It's super healthy, and I'd say every 2 weeks or so, I just kind of thin it out because it will take over quick, but it's a really big part of algae control for me. You know, it sort of dims that light. I have the Twinstar S series on here, which is just a powerhouse of a light. Currently running it at 70%, which has been a big factor in reducing the algae in BBA. That said, I do like to have the Phyllanthus fluitans in there to soak up any sort of excess waste organics, and I think it just looks cool too. So that brings us to the most important part of this story. How did I beat the BBA? Well, I beat the BBA through perseverance, hard work, and consistency. So to talk about consistency, I was extremely consistent on my maintenance. I never miss water change days. I do 2 water changes on this tank a week, 2 30% water changes every Wednesday, every Saturday. I would say most importantly, I lowered the lighting from 100% to 70%. When I first set it up, I kind of ramped it up from 50 to 100. Things were good for a few weeks, and then, you know, you start getting hit with those bad things. So took it back down to 70, and that seems to be the sweet spot for this tank. So I can't recommend finding the sweet spot for your individual setup enough. It's gonna vary depending on what your goals are, what plants you keep in the tank, how much livestock you have, as well as your dosing schedule. But for this tank, 70% seems to work just fine. And then the third and final sort of secret to, you know, eliminating the BBA in this tank has been hydrogen peroxide, my secret weapon. So once a week, when I do my big maintenance on Saturdays, I really spot dose everything that I see infected BBA. And it's one of those things where you really have to stay on it probably for a couple months to see results, but with consistency and persistence, you will notice a significant reduction in the BBA. You know, if you look at close-ups of the plants, you'll see it here and there, but it's not choking anything out. It's not visible from like a medium shot or a wide shot. So that makes me happy. And you know, what can I say? Algae is a healthy part of a natural ecosystem, so it's no big deal in this tank. So that's about all the time we have for today. I guess one final thought is, man, I'm really happy to see the guppies breeding like guppies do. We got all sorts of fries and juveniles and teenage guppies, so I'm happy to see that going on. It really feels like an ecosystem, and who knows what we'll do with this tank in the next 3 months. You guys let me know. I've made a lot of changes. Would you like to see me make more updates, more changes? And if so, what are your suggestions? Or would you like to see a complete rescape? Let me know down below in the comments, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.